today our main topic is going to be about the new regulations for social media channels in an attempt to stop sex trafficking, but it appears to maybe have some consequences that were not intended and are somewhat dire.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone from sex workers to people just wanting to go out on a date, queer folks, people who are in communities regarding breast cancer. I mean, all kinds of different people are being affected by these new laws, which are seemingly well-intentioned, perhaps not. We know that oftentimes politicians like to sneak things in by saying, but think of the children.
Right.
And we do, of course. You know, we think of the children.
Of course.
But yeah, these laws seem to be really problematic. So I'm excited to get into, delving into all of that.
Into the meat of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we're really talking about here is you've probably seen your Facebook feed and, alarmist news stories, these different things, and you're maybe wondering how legitimately should I take all of this. What we're talking about right now in the week, what everybody is kind of buzzing on, is these changes to the Facebook community guidelines, as well as changes to Tumblr's practices. In recent months, we've seen the close of sites like Backpage, as well as the end of personal ads and things like that on Craigslist.
A whole bunch of stuff is shut down that I didn't even know existed.
Hey, that's fair. I mean, I think a lot of people were like, wow, Craigslist personal ads were still a thing? And I get that, but it's largely because mainstream folks aren't using these things, not in as big a way, which is why this issue is, I think, so relevant. Because the folks who are being largely affected are folks like sex workers, queer folks in particular that are looking for a sense of community and these different things online, are all being pretty frightened right now about what these changes are going to look like. So I guess to dial it back a little bit, what we're effectively talking about is sort of the impact of FOSTA and SESTA, these two bills passed back in April, in large part on the heels of I Am Jane Doe, a documentary on Netflix that is interesting and is really compelling. And that lays out the case for why these laws are so important. And I do think that they're important, and I don't want to lose sight of that because these regulations are meant to curtail sex trafficking, particularly among children, which is an incredibly important goal.
Right, yeah, it's a very, very... It's something I think we should all be striving for.
Yeah, absolutely. The question is this going to do that?
No.
It really is.
This is absolutely ridiculous. And by the way, I'm not in any way an expert on this. I read up on it a little bit. I heard what some other people had to say. I think this is all a secondary issue. Like, we're trying to solve a problem in a way that makes us feel like we're doing something when we may not, and we haven't looked at the potential collateral. And a lot of the people that are in favor of these laws are going to be like, well, you're talking about this is really bad for people who are in legitimate sex work, but that stuff's illegal anyway, so they shouldn't be doing, That's the problem. Sex work should be legal and regulated, and then all of a sudden you don't need the venue that is a personals ad seeking stuff doesn't need to be used for cover for a legitimate escort, a legitimate sex worker. And once you legalize that and regulate it, now you don't have to worry about those channels being used, and any sex advertisement that's going on there is in fact illegal and may in fact be sex trafficking. And you can't address the issue of sex trafficking until you deal with whether or not, until you legalize and regulate sex work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to remember that it's sex work extends beyond illegal prostitution and these different things. I mean, everybody from strippers to cam girls to a number of different folks are being directly targeted by this in the sense that they can no longer advertise for their business. Payments have been cut off in large ways. I mean, folks like like Square and PayPal and all of these sorts of things have made it impossible to use their platforms. Google Wallet is moving in that direction so that people are not able to receive payments for something that is legal to do. So we're saying on the one hand that, well, I guess this is legal, but we're also demonizing it.
Yeah, now granted, I did not read up like you both did, but I have been aware of this. Mm-hmm. And being a former cam girl, I really worry about like you said, what it will do to legitimate business women. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's be honest. And that it's not really going to curtail any of the illicit, illegal, and rightfully so, certain illegal acts.
Mm-hmm. There were protections in place so that, Craigslist or whoever couldn't fall under legal trouble if somebody posted something that was illegal on a site that they were hosting.
Right. They had a certain responsibility to moderate their own pages, but they weren't liable for anything that was posted by a consumer.
And this changes that.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
So the natural response to those from those businesses is, well, we're shutting down that portion of our thing. And what you've done now is instead of having it, I couldn't tell you that much about Craigslist personals, but instead of having it there where you could maybe investigate and find out, which of these are actually sex trafficking. Now you just don't have it. Mm-hmm. And what you did was you got rid of, this 90 whatever chunk in order to save a tinier portion. And I think everybody's in favor of let's stop sex trafficking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to argue to stop something when you're still criminalizing normal activities, mm-hmm. and when the laws that you pass to do this have the effect of shutting down entire communities. Hey, I want to go hook up with somebody. Let me go use this thing. Well, we can't know for sure that somebody's not paying somebody. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go down a weird slippery slope here, but there's a context in which I paid for dinner,
right,
and then we had sex. Oh, that's not prostitution. Okay, I paid for dinner and a movie, and then we had sex. Oh wait, no, we went on a cruise for a week. And I didn't actually give you money for sex, but I paid for the cruise. Mm-hmm. It's a strange thing to try to define this when we haven't even gotten to the point where we're willing to accept it.
Yeah.
That not everybody involved in sex work is a victim of sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It seems like we're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater with this.
Yeah, well, and the mechanism that we've set up effectively, particularly the new Facebook guidelines, really emphasize the idea that, people can still talk about their sexuality, people can still ostensibly meet others in these different things, but the guidelines are written so broadly that if anybody were to, hit the flag and report a post, it now goes under review, and depending on how it's defined, those rules can very clearly cover just about any conversation. And so, myself, I barely use Facebook. I'm only on there because it's a way of feeling connected to the polyamory community, which is very small and is difficult to feel close to. And that's a sexuality-specific group where we discuss sex. People aren't necessarily soliciting for it in most of these groups. That does happen in some of those groups. Those are all very vulnerable now, but even much more broad groups that are offering any form of LGBTQ support and these other things, all anybody has to do is hit report, and now they are being shut down. And
we know there are trolls out there who are going to do it just for shits and giggles.
Exactly. As if queer folks weren't already being bullied in every other goddamn corner of society, we have created this mechanism that makes it so easy to shut down their access to any sort of peer support.
Yeah, I have problems with it for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that people in the queer community broadly, but trans people in particular, arranging meetings anonymously and at a distance can be a bit of a safety net. Mm-hmm.
And
this whole thing reminds me, when we talk about people who want to end abortion, and they're constantly creating trap laws and doing whatever they can to overturn Roe, et cetera, et cetera. When if you want to reduce the number of abortions, they should be in support of condoms.
Right, absolutely.
And yet they're not.
Right,
Comprehensive sex
or
education.
birth control, or any of the, you know, pre-egg meat sperm.
And so to me, if you're opposed to sex trafficking, then it would seem that it would be much better to create a task force that's investigating sex trafficking and make use of these utilities instead of doing what they did, which was effectively shut them all down.
Mm-hmm.
I also personally wonder, from a perspective of when you take these avenues away, when you restrict something, what's going to pop up? And, you know, these things, these actions are not going to stop.
Yeah, people have been having sex despite prohibitions against it for as long as people have been making more people.
Right. And so the question is just where are they going to go now? Mm-hmm. And do we have those avenues that we knew were there? Do we have any, do we have any idea of or a way to track the new avenues that they come up with? Mm-hmm. So I think it's just forcing it into a deeper, darker, seedier underbelly.
Let's fix climate change by banning cars.
Right. I think that that's a perfect analogy, without considering the fact that, you know, more people are going to die because of lack of ambulances, because of decreased value of life and suicide. And I mean, all of these different considerations all come in. I sincerely wonder how many, you know, teenage kids are now going to be cut off from a gay community, from any type of support as they are working with adjusting to an identity that is not well liked, frankly,
right.
In the real world.
Or accepted, yeah.
Yeah, and so having access to that type of support is legitimately saving lives. And by removing that support, I can't know that you're making any positive net balance on protecting children.
And protecting children should be, you know, is, again, an admirable goal and is, you know, something that we all want, but there are probably better ways to go about it.
Absolutely. So it's very disheartening. The truth of the matter is we still are yet to know exactly how all this is going to shake out. I mean, these laws passed back in April, and we saw some immediate effects, and then we all kind of forgot about it for a while. And then as time went on, we started seeing more and more divisions, I suppose, of the web being impacted. I mean, Google Drive no longer allows people to post in their own private folders, their own private sexual pictures. And so that's all of a sudden an avenue that just one leg being taken out. And that's affecting sex workers and all kinds of
They already deleted them?
Wait,
Let me
how am
go
I supposed
check.
to send my dick pics?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a very real concern. It's a very real concern.